Welcome to episode 12 of the Kim Turner podcast. And today I have a good buddy of mine, Quenton Mullins from Red Bluff PD, who was a 911 first responder working an active shooter event from 2020. We're going to listen to some audio, but actually watch a video. This is the official department video regarding this incident. We'll watch some body-worn camera footage, but afterwards we're going to have a discussion because it's really nice to learn from someone who's kind of worked these events from a 911 perspective. And Quentin's going to watch this with me, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards.
It is certainly one of the most stressful environments a police officer is called to perform in. It should be noted, by their very nature, active shooter incidents are chaotic. Officers often have minimal or inaccurate information when arriving on scene, and emotions generally run high. This incident was no exception, as noted by the use of profanity by the officers involved in this incident. The following body-worn camera video, recorded by Sergeant Murguia, has very strong language and illustrates a deadly force encounter between an armed suspect and the police. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for sensitive viewers and young children.
On June 27, 2020, Red Bluff police officer Deaver was working patrol when he overheard radio traffic being broadcast on the Tehama County Sheriff frequency regarding a possible active shooter at the Walmart Distribution Center located at 10815 Highway 99 West in Red Bluff. The Walmart Distribution Center is approximately 5 miles south of the Red Bluff city limits within the jurisdiction of the Tehama County Sheriff's Office. It is common for law enforcement agencies within Tehama County to monitor the radio traffic of allied agencies to better assist them in the event of emergencies and other mutual aid requests for assistance. Upon hearing the emergency traffic on the Tehama County Sheriff's frequency, Officer Deaver rebroadcast the information on the Red Bluff police frequency to notify all on-duty personnel of the unfolding emergency. Officer Deaver, Sergeant Murguia, and Officer Rosas responded immediately to the Walmart Distribution Center from Red Bluff at 3:32 p.m. The Red Bluff Police Department issues body-worn cameras to every officer. The cameras are used to document the officer's activity and interactions with the public. Officers are required to activate their body-worn cameras prior to engaging in confrontational activity. An exception to this rule is granted during a rapidly unfolding incident where the officer must engage a subject or where the conscious effort of activating the camera could potentially endanger the officer, or excused when a myriad of stressors affect the officer's ability to remember to turn on the camera during an extraordinary event. Officer Deaver was focused on the situation before him and did not immediately activate his body camera upon his arrival. Officer Rosas' camera was activated prior to arriving on the scene, but it did not capture the officer-involved shooting. Sergeant Murguia activated his camera prior to arriving on scene, and his camera captured a portion of this officer-involved shooting. Officer Deaver was the first officer to arrive in the parking lot of the Walmart Distribution Center at 3:37 p.m. Sergeant Murguia and Officer Rosas arrived less than a minute later. Officer Deaver was met by a Walmart employee who was bleeding from a head wound. The employee directed Officer Deaver in the direction of a building known as the Smokehouse. It was in this area where the employee identified a heavy-set man crouching behind a pickup truck as the shooter. The man had his back to Officer Deaver, and he could not see his hands. Officer Deaver commanded the man to show his hands. As the man turned towards Officer Deaver could see he was armed with a long gun. The man faced Officer Deaver and raised his gun. Officer Deaver responded by firing his patrol rifle at the man. The man fired back at Officer Deaver while attempting to conceal himself behind parked cars in the lot. Numerous shots were engaged between Officer Deaver and the suspect as Sergeant Murguia entered the parking lot and stopped his car. When Sergeant Murguia arrived, he heard the sound of gunfire as he neared the front of the building where he saw a burning car. When Sergeant Murguia parked and got out of his car, he again heard the sound of gunfire and observed the suspect using the rails of a pickup truck bed for support while shooting at Officer Deaver. What you are about to hear are radio transmissions between Officer Deaver and Red Bluff Police Dispatch, followed by Sergeant Murguia's body camera video. As a reminder, the video you're about to see is graphic. Viewer discretion is advised.
Active shooter, Walmart, DC. Active shooter, Walmart, DC.
Red Bluff copies. Active shooter, Walmart, DC.
Well, find out. I'm en route to Walmart, DC.
D2, I copy here now.
Myself, 337, another CMP unit on 97, because it's 33.
Get down! Drop your gun! Get back over here now! Get on your face and face me! Now!
Put your fucking hands up!
He's dropped his rifle.
Put your fucking hands up now!
He dropped his rifle.
Put your
Hands
fucking
up!
Hands up!
You have a less lethal?
Put your fucking
Hands up!
now! Show me
Hands
your
up!
hands! Show me your fucking hands!
Rifle over here, I'm gonna scare.
Show me your fucking hands! Show me your fucking hands! Put a fucking bullet in your head. Put your fucking hands out in front of you now!
Put your hands out! Watch your six.
Hands up! Yes.
I have the guns in the truck. In the truck. If you'll secure that, Justin.
Show me
Hands all the way out!
Magazine in your pocket.
Yep.
Show me your hands! Keep your hands out in front of you! He's not detained!
One at gunpoint! Don't fucking move! Do not fucking move! Do you understand me?
You got him.
Yep, good!
Do not move.
Do not fucking
Do
move.
not move.
You understand me?
All right, we're gonna pause it there because
Do you have any other weapons on you?
I think you already know what I'm gonna ask you about that ding 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 here in a second. But you know what? The things that strikes me, Quenton, is can you paint a picture? What was going on in dispatch that day? You worked solo, or did you have a partner?
So this day, I believe, was Saturday. And on Saturday, so the way our shifts work is the day shift on Saturday is solo. You're solo for either the entire day or a portion of the entire day. This particular day, I was solo all day. And actually hearing the time of when this occurred, this was right near the end of my day. And yeah, so it was right near the end of my day. And I think, if I recall right, all of my units were on the south side of Red Bluff, which is closer to the Walmart DC. So they were nearly on the south point of our jurisdiction, dealing with, a mundane call for service, something that you would not like. Usually, a dispatcher, your stress level is low, and if I recall right, that call for service was a theft of a bike that would have been seen. So they were tracking down this guy who had stolen a bike from Walmart. And so, like, your stress level as a dispatcher is just like, okay, theft, bike theft, another 459.5 from a store, and it's just the same thing. And then you get this like jolt of stress when you hear county's dispatcher who got the first set of 911s and saying, I need all units to respond to the Walmart DC. And I heard her at the same time. Officer Deaver had heard her. He got to the radio before me. I was actually just about to key up my foot. And I don't know if you guys have foot pedals in your comm centers, but my foot was literally bouncing on the thing, but not all the way. And I'll do that when I get nervous. I've noticed now. My foot will start bouncing on the transmission, and my foot was bouncing, and then he went, and I was like, "Yep, you've got it," and then they went on their way.
When I think about this, right? So it's county, the Walmart distribution center is in a county jurisdiction,
yes,
right? But
yes.
Obviously, PD works really close with the county, so and PD got there first, and obviously you monitor the county channel. Did you receive any 911 calls directly related to the event?
Yeah, so I think that it's part of the 911 system that if one station gets overloaded, they roll off to other stations. I got some spillover. I received maybe 6 or 8 of them. One of them was an injured person, but it wasn't due to the shooter itself. It was because she was running away. She tripped and fell and hurt her hand. I had a couple of others call me asking me where they should go, and I said just as far. I said go as far away as possible as you can, and they were going in all directions. They were going north. They were into the orchard, which is just to the north of that, and a lot of them were headed towards I-5. They thought that they could get to I-5, but of course, there's a huge, gigantic chain link fence with razor wire right there. So they kind of got stopped, and they're like, "What do we do now?" And I said, "Just hang out, hide out, and we'll try and reach you out," because the one girl with a hand injury, I knew I had to get somebody to her, and I eventually directed post shooting. Of course, I directed Officer Rosa to try and contact her and see if she needed any medical attention. So you're handling a few things at the same time, for sure. Yeah,
just a couple things. Yeah. This is an odd question, but I'm curious to know because I know I've never asked you this. In any of those calls, did you hear any of the gunfire in the background?
No.
Okay. And was it, I guess the confirmation that it was an active shooter was because you were hearing county dispatch put that out simultaneously as to the officer saying, "Hey, this is what we got." Working solo, what do you think was the most challenging part about this whole thing, working by yourself?
I think that you just have to know. I think the most challenging part about working solo in an event like of this type of severity is that it's almost like you're going to get this like wave of other 911s and other things and people calling you, and it's almost like you're worried about after the fact, not even during the fact, because I knew that my job was going to get way more busy in the moments after all this. I would say the most stressful thing during the event is when you're sitting in silence, and there's a moment during the video where I hear, so county said that they had 1 detained, and you hear everybody else say, "No, 1 at gunpoint." And so when Leela arrived on scene, she actually told me out with 1. I said, "Copy, out with 1." And I knew they were out with him. And then there was just like dead air. And then so when county's like 1 detained, I was like, "Okay, cool." And they were like, no, 1 at gunpoint. And then I was like, "Oh, here, let's, make sure we're, all the hairs stand on your arms, on your ear, you're just worried that they're in a gunfight. And you're just stuck at the desk waiting for the next thing that you can do to help them out.
Yeah. That's really huge. You said you're waiting for the next thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So, I sit here thinking I've worked solo before when I worked part-time for college, a university. And it's a different animal when you have someone else in the room that can at least pick up the phone. Because the thought that goes through your mind is the 911, is this 911 related? Because heart attacks don't stop, right? TCs with injuries don't stop. Other felonies don't stop. How do I know that this call is related? But you're only one person. And if they're on scene until we have a detention or a code 4, did you have to make a conscious shift to say, I just need to focus on the radio? I mean, like, how do you, like, seriously, like, how did you manage that?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think as a dispatcher, you definitely learn. It's a skill that is learned in the comm center, and the more that you take those calls, the more you realize I can tune this caller out and be actively listening to what's going on. I think in that situation, I was lucky enough to not get bombarded with 911s as I have in other critical incidents, where it's like, okay, now I can't quite understand or I can't quite copy that. But I think that in the end, you're going to have to make that decision, and you're going to have to listen for maybe some keywords, or listen to the radio, or listen to the tone of the officer of what they're going through. And it'll instantly pique your interest. I need to listen to this, or I need to listen to the caller. So that's the thing, is you're listening for either some sort of keywords, how they're talking, at the pace that they're talking at. And I think that that's something that you can definitely learn from going forward in terms of, okay, when do I really need to pay attention and focus all my attention on the radio to see what they need from me? And then vice versa, what can I do for them? Making calls, doing stuff after the fact, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's during the issue, you are just there to receive and retransmit, and just making sure that everybody is aware, which is exactly what we do with the Tama County Sheriff's Office. They parrot, we parroted back, so that I know that the dispatcher over there knew where we were, what we had, and she knew exactly what we had too. Because you see, now Lieutenant Murguia, but then Sergeant Murguia run around the truck, and when he gets back around the other side of the truck, there's 3 more cops. So it's like it was just that quick.
That's a great observation. And you said something that really hit like a big nerve in a positive way, not a negative way. I know in that there are some agencies that are adopting artificial intelligence to help mitigate and triage some calls. But the one thing that AI cannot do is pick up on tone. It could pick up, and I could think of, just off the top of my head, at least a dozen calls in my career where it wasn't what the person said, it was how the person said it, that let me know this is an emergency and I need to pay attention. So that's just like a huge point that's kind of off topic. But actually, speaking of technology, all the screens we have and all the programs we have, was there any tech piece that stood out for you? Was it your map? Was it something else? Were you guys using Rapid Deploy or Rapid SOS? I mean, like, I'm just curious from a tech perspective, even not related to this event, but like day to day, like, what's your favorite go-to piece of software?
So I think at the time that this occurred, I don't know if I can't recall if our station had Rapid Deploy yet. So it was a lot of bouncing off of your CAD spill and CAD maps from either 911s, knowing where they were at, or quickly using Google Maps to say, okay, they said they're on the west side in this section of the parking lot, okay. And then I hear County say something about the smokehouse. I'm like, okay, so that's got to be right here. So west side of the smokehouse is where we ended up, which is exactly where the shooting took place. So you're cross-referencing, honestly, multiple things at that time. I would say, so that is then. Now, we do have Rapid Deploy, which is a huge use. And I think Rapid Deploy has actually only gotten better. Not that if I had the opportunity to speak with somebody at Rapid Deploy, I'd say, hey, let's talk. And maybe from somebody who is an active user to somebody who's an active programmer, and get that collaboration squared away.
That's all right. I'll tag him in this.
Yeah. I think there's a few things that could be fixed there. It could be more beneficial to dispatchers. But I feel like in my case, I referenced probably 2 or 3 different things to make sure that I have the right thing. Now, I would say most of the time it's either my CAD spill or Rapid Deploy, but at the same time, some of those aren't always exact. And then a lot of it's like, okay, knowing your resources, knowing if it's in or out of your jurisdiction, and then knowing whether or not you need to maybe escalate the situation and do like a rapid, SOS, where you can send back a message and be like, hey, click this link so I know where you are. And I've had instances where that happened, and we were actually able to find somebody that was stuck on the side of a mountain, not even close to Red Bluff.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, that was interesting. It's a whole other story, but yeah, multiple resources now for sure. Obviously, Google is still going to be king, I think, when it comes to knowing your landscape, because there's new buildings, there's new places, new addresses, and my CAD spill map is probably 10 years old now, so at least 10 or 12 years old now.
What CAD are you guys on?
We're on Sunridge Rims.
Okay.
And we've had I've been there since 2015. I believe they adopted it in 2012. I've been a pretty big fan of Sunridge myself. I believe that their programmers are definitely of the mind of the user, and I think that they always are open to making changes for the user. I think the mapping system is simply something that we would have to pay for, which is rather expensive to get a new satellite view. And then they have to build those layers in, which is a whole thing that's beyond my skill level. But in terms of running through Sunridge, which I know that there are quite a few California agencies that do have it now. A lot of them are smaller agencies like mine.
Yeah.
But there are a few larger agencies that run RIMS, and we all know how RIMS can work for you, and then sometimes can work against you. But overall, I think once you figure out how to make yourself more adaptable to having somebody show you, hey, you could do this a different way, and then you're going to realize that your efficiency is going to spike. You're going to be so fast, and you're going to be really quick about picking up. Okay, I know I can add this person this way, and it's going to take me. And in the reality, we're talking seconds away, but the reality is seconds matter. Seconds
do matter, and all I could think is, where were you when I had to learn RIMS? So, but I also would argue, having worked in two very large agencies, RIMS is appropriate for a small agency. No it's not for a multi-jurisdictional or a large agency.
Think so. I can't think of one joint communication center off the top of my head that runs Sunridge. I think that they all run different things, and that includes CHP. They have their own really funky CAD, and I've been lucky enough to see it and see what they do with it, and they have things that works. And when I look at that and then I look at RIMS, I'm like, well, I think I'm actually pretty happy with RIMS right now.
So CHP has a huge RFP out. I believe their current system is homegrown. They built it, and so whoever gets that contract will have their work cut out for them, because they have 25 dispatch centers, I think, or 24 now in the state. But CHP, all my love to CHP dispatchers, they have to deal with a lot that we don't have to deal with. So I'm not. There's no complaints there. I thank God, love them. Speaking of, I'm kind of curious. And I don't even know if I've really kind of thought about it in this context as I was listening to you. Has anything about managing this event or any other critical incident changed your approach on a day-to-day basis?
I think so, honestly. I think so. Without realizing it, you come in the next day and you're just a little bit more seasoned, I guess would be the nice word for it. You come in, you're like, yeah, I did that. And it's just more of like a confidence booster, kind of in a terrible way, but it's also a confidence booster knowing, in case you've always been stressed about these serious incidents happening, that those mental repetitions that you've taken over your sitting there as a dispatcher waiting for the next call, the next worst thing to happen, that when it does happen, that you can do it, that you can do this job.
Would it be fair? And I don't even know. Had you received any training specific to active shooters before this happened, or did your training kick in?
I did, yes, and yes to both. So I was lucky enough to go to I think it was Vacaville for a training with you, actually.
Oh, really? I actually didn't even know that.
Yes, I was.
I wasn't setting that up.
Oh no. It was, and I think that was a year before this incident.
It was. I remember this class. It was a huge class, and I had a couple SWAT guys with me, right?
You did, yes.
Yep, I remember that class.
So we were lucky enough to. So I had specifically asked, and my supervisor is really great about getting all about, once again, small agency stuff here. So my supervisor is really good about fielding. Hey, what are you looking for? What are you looking to take? And if you see any post classes, let me know, and we'll see if we can fit it in. And I've always been more of the type to be kind of aggressive about learning. Like, I'm like, hey, throw me in the fire and I'll find my way out. And with things, you could tell things were kind of escalating as crime just continues to go up, it seems like. And I was like, I would really like to attend something a little bit more critical. So I've always wanted to attend more critical classes, one of them at that time being active shooter, because, I mean, there were things in the world that day. We had, school shootings and stuff like that, that I wanted to at least have an idea, and getting an idea of what you could do. If you take anything from the class, you may take something from somebody else, maybe not even the trainer, but somebody who's already been through something, to be like, okay, I need to make sure that I know what my resources are, where people need to go in case something serious happens. Where do I need to send everybody to get them safe? Okay, where do I need to send my cops to? What's the staging point? What's your job as a dispatcher? Are you supposed to be coordinating everything, or you just handle everything until you can get your person on scene to create that CP and then move on from there? And knowing those things ahead of time, even if it depends, and it doesn't matter how seasoned you are as a dispatcher. I'm not. I don't consider myself a veteran dispatcher at all, and I've been doing this for 8.5 years. I mean, I know people who've been doing it for 18, 20 plus years, and we're all the same when it comes to that. You could be a 1-year dispatcher, you could be a 20 plus year dispatcher, and you can still learn, you can still grow, and you can still make yourself better.
That's huge. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Because I remember that class like it was yesterday. It was right before COVID. That's what I remember. Right. And, what was the one thing that you took away from that class? I remember my one takeaway, because it was something I'd never heard before.
My one takeaway from that class was I really did not realize that we had a whole book of, hey, here's what to do in case of this. And so I immediately went back and started asking my administrators and my supervisor, I'm like, hey, do we have any documentation on what happens if A, B, or C? And I don't even want to put it out there, and she was like, yeah, there's these old manuals. And I'm like, when's the last time anybody knew about this stuff? When's the last time this stuff has been updated? And the manual was dated back to 2014. I'm like, I think we need to maybe take a look at this.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've been really trying to preach to, we have an interagency SWAT, and what I've been trying to preach is just trying to get these guys, if they do trainings where they're going to be doing scenario-based stuff, get a dispatcher in there. I don't care if it's us or county, get somebody in there as a dispatcher so they can kind of go through the rep too. And I think if you can do that, yeah. But I took just figuring out hey, I need to know, what does our department have as far as a standard for this? Because in case the sergeant is just absolutely getting mind, blown with everything that's happening on scene, he might need you as a dispatcher to be like, hey, here's your CP point for this thing, and just helping one another out in certain situations. That's
such huge advice. I mean, I really appreciate you allowing me to put you on the spot. Those are great takeaways. One of the things that I've studied and teach is this idea of wellness and resilience. So my thought is, have you considered or thought about your coping mechanisms? Because I think you hit on something that's huge that we may not think about when we think about resilience. The idea the next day is yeah, I did that. That's not a braggadocious thing at all. What that is really building resilience and the confidence that something might come my way, but we'll figure it out. That is huge for coping skills.
Yeah, I think that, everybody has a different coping skill, whether they could be good or they could be detrimental to you. And I think that if your department, and this is a whole side thing, and just because I've known people who are close to me, officers, etc., if your department has some sort of I forget what the term is,
peer support or EAP.
Okay. Know who your peer support people are. If you don't know who they are, get an idea of who they are, because some of the, and I can only relate to my department because it's so small, but my comm center is in the department. We are they come in and out of dispatch every day, all day. And when you get to know people on a more personal level, then you can kind of talk with them on a more personal side. And when people start to talk to you and open up to you, be receptive of that information and just kind of let them debrief with you. Even if you are just a dispatcher, and I say just a dispatcher because you're more like a therapist at that point. But at that time, you got to at least reassure them that, hey, you're good and I'm good. And you just check in with one another. And peer support is definitely one of those things that I'm for, no doubt. I think that I've been lucky enough in my department to be part of conversations where people are going through really hard times, and I've seen people come out of it on the other side in really great places.
That is awesome, man. I really like that. I actually love that. I appreciate the openness and the willingness to be vulnerable, right? And to have those conversations. I think I just have kind of like one last thing that's on my mind, because I know briefly we're talking about like your CTO and you're a trainer. And I think kind of what I'm curious about is if you could offer, whether it's advice or whether it's like if you had a conversation with another 911 dispatcher, like what would that one thing be for them to help prepare? Because I think with the way things are going in our world, it's not if, it's when it may happen in your jurisdiction.
Yeah. I think I think you nailed it. I think it's also one of those things that I've always, and so with my trainees, we'll go over technical stuff, of course. And I think it's really good that you know where the things are when you need them the most. And just kind of just making sure you have that knowledge of, okay, if I stuff something in an email that's been 2 years ago about this thing, find it and put it in a note, put it in a notepad, put it on a lot of people run Windows for their CAD software. So Windows has, a feature called OneNote, and OneNote, you can build all these huge, quick little notes for yourself. Well, and I'm talking like backlines for people, backlines for other agencies. Knowing these resources ahead of time is just going to make you more efficient when it comes to more critical events. Because in case like who the heck is going to know who to call for your on-call coroner after the fact? And it's like, okay, well, where's that resource? So you got to know these resources ahead of time. I would say now that I've trained a couple people under my belt, I think that what I've learned is putting some trainees through scenario-based situations and kind of practicing those and going through those repetitions, even if it's role play or just showing them examples of stuff like that. And maybe that's a different learning style for some people, but I think when you go through different scenario-based situations, that's the way we got to learn in this field. And a lot of those times, even if you're done with training, you may not have experienced it all. And so the more you can at least put yourself through as a dispatcher, training a new dispatcher, saying, hey, in this situation, here's what happened, A, B, C, D, and going through the list of stuff that you have to do. I think that's really important, because at least that now they may not have memorized it or taken it completely, but they have an idea of, oh, I remember he was talking about this and then this and this. And you just kind of put yourself in a better position to be more successful, not if, but when things happen. And that there's no doubt that you got to be more prepared than ever. And I think that law enforcement is a whole world of preppers out there, and that's kind of the culture. And I mean, dispatch is probably going to be about the same as well. And I think if you have those plan A, plan B in your head already, taking the mental reps and being like, okay, if this were to happen today, what would I do? And you're going to be ready to go. You're going to be a great dispatcher, to be honest.
And I want to just put the cherry on top, because I don't want it to be missed in the middle of all of this. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Do we have resources already? Do we have a manual or a go-to or a go-by or a template, whatever you call it, to help you kind of get started with that? Like, don't be afraid to ask. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think the only other note, and when it comes to this specifically, we're talking about this active shooter situation, being a solo dispatcher, is I still get it to this day about certain calls that you'll get it almost like you get locked up and you freeze for, like, we're talking what feels like an eternity to you, but in reality is maybe like 10 or 15 seconds. And your hands freeze and you don't know what to do with the mouse and you don't know what to do with the CAD, because there's just a whole wave of information hitting your brain. that you're like, oh, and you're trying to like spit it out, and it's normal. The thing of it is like when that happens, it's completely normal, and you're gonna get that like frozen effect, and then you're gonna be like, oh, okay, and then the training will come through, even if you don't think it does come through, it does come through because you're able to regurgitate this information, get the necessary information. So in this one incident, we had information that was secondhand from county dispatch that I'm relaying over to our officers. Is it accurate? It's the best I got. So I'm going to give it to you so you have the best idea of where to go to, where Sergeant Murguia had the best opportunity to engage with this guy. And then he takes his training on from there.
I think that's Quenton, I think that's just such a huge thing, right? How we process information, how quickly we do it, but it's really a double down on why it's so important that dispatchers not only attend, but participate in active shooter training. It's how we're able to build that Rolodex in our head and that file so we can, oh, I got to pull that card out today because this is what I'm doing. And unless we involve us, I actually read a stat recently from Nina that 80% of police contacts start with 911. Why would you not train 80% of your team? Like, that's how I think of it, right? Like, if we're better, you're going to be better. So we always have overtime, bro. Just post a couple of more hours so somebody can go and go to a training.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. If there's an opportunity for other agencies and not just mine to involve your dispatchers in scenario-based situations, I mean, of the ones that are the most scary to me would be more like school shooting stuff. You know, of course, that's probably on every dispatcher's mind is like, what the hell is going to happen if I do this? Hopefully, if there's an opportunity to go through a scenario like that, maybe you'll be able to spread that knowledge to the next dispatcher who's on the complete opposite shift and, you know, help each other out.
I haven't written about this yet because there hasn't been enough information yet. But one of the things I know, having worked in 2 very large agencies, is one simple thing. Whenever there's a huge event, and I think of Butler, Pennsylvania, small town, right? I don't even know if the dispatchers even knew what was going on until they got a sheet that morning that said we have people on overtime on a special assignment.
Oh, no kidding, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's the reality we all live in, right? Like you come into work and there's a special assignment, or and I'm not criticizing. This is not a criticism. It truly is not a criticism. It's an observation of our world. In my mind, the more we're up to speed and the more we have information, the better we could prepare if things go sideways. Because we're not paid for what we do. We're paid for what we might have to do, right? And I think that it's just really that communication piece. And all of us, that's a two-way street. All of us can be better because, quite frankly, our sworn brothers and sisters don't know our needs if we aren't expressing them in a way that we can, you know, articulate that we're part of the solution. So I think that's a two-way street, but it'd be really at the end of it, you know, hopefully there'll be a lot of lessons that we can all take away and we can learn from this. And, you know, it's a tragic event and just really sad, you know, that the retired firefighter lost his life and people were injured. But yeah, let's not be in vain, right? That we can learn from it and that we can be better, because clearly in local law enforcement, local public safety, we're involved in these events, and the better we can prepare. Because I would say that our response may not be any different than an active shooter event. We just need to know so that we can perform better, right?
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I think you nailed it. To be honest, I think the lines of communication have to go through dispatch, and that's just it. You are that. Even if you are just repeating the same thing, and then somebody else makes those decisions, but you're still going to be involved in making that choice to talk. And then you're also responsible for receiving the information for scenarios like that. And also, yeah, it makes a great point that I bet you they showed up that morning being like, okay. And they all right, we're going to handle this today.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they just had to know that was on their mind. And we don't know who there was or what agency, or if it was a joint communication center. But
yeah, we don't know. We don't know. There's not enough to know.
Yeah, because for me and you, we're a tale of two worlds. You work at extremely large agencies, and I work for an agency with 24 sworn. And that's just the difference. Some things hit a little bit more personal in my world, where it may not be in a larger agency, but also, at the end of the day, knowledge is still goes from one. Kim Turner being from a super huge agency, and me being from Red Bluff in Northern
You're right.
California.
Because at the end of the day, there's only one dispatcher on that channel, no matter the size of your agency, right? And the application is exactly the same. Yeah, great conversation, man. I love this. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to have this conversation, an opportunity to, have a conversation with our peers, with our cohorts in 911. Q, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. Our 911 agencies across the country are hiring and recruiting, and we love featuring agencies and having a conversation, and also inviting you to take a look at that agency if you're thinking about lateraling, or if you are interested in this as a profession. Coming to us from sunshiny San Diego, I'm really jealous, but in Southern California, we're used to having the wonderful weather. What we really don't talk about a lot, though, are really extra large PSAPs, really big agencies. And so I'm excited that Sean Morse has taken the time to speak with us today from San Diego Fire Department. And also having a fire department represented here in terms of recruitment and understanding what fire dispatch is all about. I can't wait to have this conversation. Sean, welcome to the program. Sean, tell me a little bit about your agency, about your dispatch center.
So
how big is San Diego?
So the city of San Diego, I think I have to look up some details.
Are you like the third largest city in the state? I think behind San Francisco and LA.
We are the second largest in the.
What?
Yeah, we're the second largest in the state, and we are the 8th largest in the United States as far as population. We're actually bigger than San Francisco.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. As far as population, 1.3, almost 1.4 million. And I want to say we're about 350 square miles or something like that, but I could be. No, that's way too much.
No, I don't know. You think so?
That's a good question. For square miles?
How big is San Diego?
Land, yeah, it's 325 square miles.
Wow.
But there's some water there too, so 372 if you include the water. That's part of the city.
Do you guys dispatch for the harbor there?
We will respond there, but that's the primary responsibility of the harbor police, the San Diego Harbor Police.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. If they ask us for assistance, we'll come out there. But they have boats, so they're best suited for firefighting and emergency medical operations.
I never even considered that they have their own dispatch center there, but obviously they do.
Yeah.
Which is sort of how long have you been with San Diego? Has your whole career been there?
No, I've been here for almost 10 years. But I had past experience as a paramedic, as an EMT, and as a dispatcher at a couple other agencies before settling in here.
What do you mind me asking what those other agencies were?
No, I worked for CAL FIRE way back in the 90s, and then I also worked for Heartland Communications in the East County here in San Diego.
Okay, yeah, I'm really familiar with both, and CAL FIRE doesn't really get its due. CAL FIRE is busy, right?
Yeah.
It's like crazy busy. Now, if I were thinking of becoming a dispatcher, I will be completely honest with you. I don't think most people think about fire. And with that being said, this is the one time I think you can honestly say, if you are a fire dispatcher, you're helping somebody with, like, what would you say, 95% of the calls? Or would it be 100%?
As far as what again?
Helping someone. Like on the law enforcement side, right? What we know is, like, God, I don't know the pure data, Sean, but I would tell you a good 60% of the calls probably don't go anywhere. Meaning it's not even a public safety issue. It's not a law enforcement issue. It's not a fire issue. But as a fire 911 first responder, like 100% of the calls are close to it. I'm actually directly helping someone, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I would say at least 90% of our calls are emergency medical. So if you just tied helping somebody directly to a medical call, it would easily be 90%. But even when we're taking fires, you're helping people. So I think 100% would probably be accurate. And all of our calls are, or the vast majority of our calls are, immediate need requests for assistance. We don't hold calls. We don't pen calls as a law enforcement center does. We respond to each call immediately as a code 3 response for the most part. So it's a different environment and a different dynamic than a law enforcement communication center.
What is so as I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, if I'm thinking about getting into this career, some of the questions I might have would be, what kind of schedule do you work as a fire dispatcher?
So in our center, we work 12-hour shifts. Our shifts run from 6 to 1800 or 18 to 06. We do have a couple overlaps that work 10 to 2200. And then as far as days, our current shift schedule for dispatchers is you work one end of the week or the other, and all the shifts are bid by seniority. So just as an example, we have people that work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, every other Wednesday, and then we have people that work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every other Wednesday. But we have some variations to that. Some people at the very top get a sweet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every other Thursday gig, but those are kind of few and far between.
And also I think it's important, how big is your dispatch center? How many dispatchers do you have?
We have 56 authorized positions currently. I'm sorry, 57, and with 3 vacancies at this moment. And then we have 7 supervisors with an anticipated 4 more coming on board after the fiscal year. We'll have 4 additional
wonderful
positions. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I think when I think about that, it's like you're not working alone. You have a lot of partners in the room to manage the calls and the radio. If I were like not a lateral, let's just say entry level, right? What can I do to prepare myself for the role of working for you in San Diego?
I think our candidates that are successful generally come to us with some kind of customer service background. There's a wide variety of things you can do to prep yourself, but customer service experience, that doesn't even have to be extensive. It can be as simple as working at a Starbucks. I find people that have experience with Starbucks, In-N-Out, those types
Chick-fil-A.
of Chick-fil-A, AAA, also call people that work their call center. Those people tend to do very well here because they have experience providing excellent customer service, which is a big part of what we do here. And then other things you could do to prep yourself. There are some community college dispatcher classes here in San Diego County that you can actually take and get oriented to the dispatcher career. I don't know that that's available everywhere, but it is available here in San Diego County. And then also just making sure that you've done your homework on knowing what the job entails. What we find frequently with people who are not successful, or what I find frequently, is that they didn't do enough homework on what the job was about, even when that information was readily available. So when they got here, they were surprised by some aspects of the job. So I highly recommend that people come in kind of already knowing what the job's about.
Would they be able to go on a sit-along with the agency during the application process or before?
During the application process, if their name is on the eligible list here at the city, you are permitted to schedule a ride-along or a sit-along, and I highly encourage people to do that. And even scheduling those with other agencies if they want to is also a good move, so you can kind of get an idea of what the differences are between law enforcement, fire, EMS. Yeah.
That's really great advice, Sean. What if I'm applying? I'm thinking about lateraling or applying entry level. What distinguishes San Diego? Why would I pick your agency over another agency?
Well, first off, the weather. We can't get past working in San Diego is one of the best environments out there. But I think here at San Diego, we're really special because if you really want to do this job, working in a high volume center like San Diego is the place to be. I don't know if people really want to go to work and not do what they were trained to do. I know I'm not that person. I want to come to work and do exactly what I've been trained to do. It's not that you wish anything bad to happen to people, but you want to be a part of it, right? You want to be able to use the skills you've been taught. We're extremely high volume here. 280,000 incidents last year, individual incidents across not only the San Diego Fire Department, but the 5 other cities we dispatch for. So if you really want to do this job, this is one of the best places to be. You're going to be doing it every day, getting a lot of experience. Additionally, we're extremely competitive here as far as pay. We have a lot of raises that were just negotiated, and we're only midway through them. So raises are coming every 6 months.
Wow.
I would put us up against anybody in this county as far as pay. I feel like we're probably close to the top if we aren't the top. And it's just a great place to work. The department's great. Our contract cities are great. We have great partners here.
Well, you have me about to apply. That sounds amazing, dude. So my other question for you is, I know some fire dispatch centers have incident dispatchers that go out on scenes. Do you do the same, or do you have the same?
We don't currently, but it's funny you mention that because just last week, myself and some other dispatchers were out at a county wildland drill getting task books signed off to do exactly what you just mentioned. So hopefully in the future we can get something arranged. We're working towards that as a goal.
That's awesome. That is great to hear. Lastly, we're going to put some links for applicants, those that are interested. I always ask everyone this question, so I'm going to ask you an odd and weird question.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to describe yourself as a call type,
mm-hmm.
right, or a type code, whichever terminology you use, what would it be?
Oh boy, a rubbish fire. No, I'm just kidding. Boy, no.
Black smoke everywhere.
Black smoke everywhere. Smoke check. Boy, that's a great question. I don't.
I'm going with rubbish fire, Sean. That was good. That was
rubbish
funny.
Fire is probably close to correct. Trash fire. Yeah. No. I think rubbish fire. Yeah. Just sometimes.
That's a good one.
Sometimes it's a total dumpster fire. You never know. You know what? I thrive under it though. So if it was anything less than a dumpster fire, I don't know that I would know what to do.
You'd be bored.
Yeah,
you'd be bored. And I don't think, I personally don't think it should be missed that working in a very busy agency is worth his weight in gold, right? Having worked at Inglewood PD in the heyday of Inglewood, where there were times you were so busy you got dizzy. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I know you understand that. And that thrive and that drive, and it's very hard to explain, but you did well that day and every day. And you don't have the same year every year. Like, the variety of experience that you get is phenomenal. So yeah, that is cool. That is awesome. And also, I got to invite myself down there and check out the center, man, and maybe treat you to lunch or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down.
Yeah, you're just down the road.
Yeah, the weather's beautiful right now, and it's perfect. So definitely invite you down. Yeah, I agree with being in a busy center. And you say, every year is different. I'll go so far as to say every day is different in here. And that's part of the attraction, is that every day, while it may kind of some days appear to be the same as the other, they're never exactly the same. And you don't know what you're going to be a part of. You come into work thinking it's just going to be another normal day, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not wishing it upon people, but you could have a plane crash. You could have an aircraft carrier catch on fire. We could have a huge wildland fire. These are all real life incidents that have happened in here. And so I think that's part of the attraction is each day is different.